My story is not about a man. Next time you come visit me, I'll get that author here. He's dead too. He can't hide from me now. We'll have it out. And not lucha libre, sparkly head, masks, fight style, but take off my earrings and pull back my hair fight style. I'd like to see him try and call me La Chingada to my face. And we'll see if he leaves our fight with his balls still attached. My name is Isela Szekeresh, and that's my play, La Chingada. I found out about Breath of Fire. I was working with Sarah on a short film, and she told me about Breath of Fire, and they had just gotten a grant, and I was actually interested in film more than playwriting, so I offered to help videotapes or tape some of the interviews, and then from there, I became one of the playwrights. In 2015, we did a sort of new works, just a reading, and it came actually out of the Long Road Today, which was a project with South Coast Repertory, with Latino Health Access, and it brought together all of these different artists and different community members. And when that ended, there were still all of these people who wanted to tell their stories, and we felt like we could fill that void and offer free writing workshops. People donated their time to teach different aspects of playwriting, and those who wanted to finish it until the very end, we did a reading with them. Breath of Fire's mission is to offer more opportunities in the visual and performing arts for Latinas. And it's important, I think, to local and Southern California communities because, one, it's in the mission that we're there to offer that space for Latinas that may not be there for other, within the local community. And I think it's just important to have a presence of Latinas and a Chicano, Latina, space just in the artist community. What I wanted to do was be a filmmaker, and I was involved with a theater called Casa in East LA, and I started making little shorts, but from there they were mostly playwrights, so I started writing my own sketches. And I took classes with Josefina Lopez. I think I fell in love with it when I wrote something and I heard the audience laugh, so it was really immediate, and I just loved that feeling. My play is about Malinche, and she is a historical figure. This is part of the 365 Women Playwriting Project, and I think she's gotten a bad rap by history. A lot of people think of her as the betrayer of Mexico because she was with Cortez, and so there's like this whole archetype in Mexican culture about her betraying, and it was because of her that Mexico fell to to Cortez and to the conquerors. I came to her from an academic perspective, and I was a Chicano Studies student, women's studies. I'm like, this lady's gotten a really bad rap. You know what I mean? There's no way you can say that she was the reason for the downfall when she was a woman 500 years ago and people were giving her away. And she really didn't have a lot of choices. She made the best choices she could at the time, but she didn't have, full agency in her life. Well, first of all, I make her say a lot of bad words because that's what I like as a playwright. But I start off the play with her being mad that, I tried to tie in the Urban Dictionary into it, and her being mad that people aren't defending her. It's still the same thing 500 years later. And then through the trajectory of it's a monologue, I go through her story about what happened to her, that her mom actually gave her up, and how she was given away as a slave, and how she ended up with Cortez, and kind of the conquest, just a brief history with the conquest, and then sort of her legacy, 500 years later. I would like the audience to get a different perspective of the story, but I'd also like the audience to I've learned a lot researching her, so maybe getting more of a historical lesson about the conquest of Mexico and, the Aztec Empire 500 years ago. Well, because I have to write because there's little stories. They're like, Elizabeth, you haven't written me yet. Elizabeth, and they just sort of, at the weirdest times, they'll be tapping me on the head, or I'll be trying to fall asleep, and I don't feel okay until I write them. And they don't leave me alone, actually, until I write them. I just have stories to tell. I've tried not telling them, I've tried not writing, but I'm unhappy. So I've just sort of decided that, people may not like my stories, and I make it some pushback from them and be unhappy about that. But I'll be unhappy if I don't write them, so I might as well write them and see what happens. Yeah, a lot of my plays do have colorful language, and there's just a little bit of a kid in me that's like, oh, I get to say the bad word. And I do like kind of poking the bear. A little bit of me likes taking the audience on a ride. I do like the shock value. I was thinking of that question on the way over here. Why do I have to write so many bad words? But it's just fun. It's important to have bilingual plays because, again, you want the audience to hear themselves in it. They want to see themselves in the play. And, whichever way you can do it, whichever language you can get an audience member to relate and feel comfortable with the play, you should go for it. I would like to see more plays produced in Spanish. I'm actually a pocha, so I'm half white, half Mexican, and so I came to Spanish, in high schools where I learned Spanish, but poorly, very badly. And I had to go to college to learn all the bad words. My friends taught me that. But it's important to have the language because there's so many people who speak Spanish. They should be able to see plays and media in their language. Aspiring playwrights is they show up to one of our workshops and you just show up. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be a writer. You just show up and, if people want to share, they can share. If they don't have to. And we just sort of take everybody along and hopefully they'll get something out of it. We've had people who weren't playwrights who've come and taken the workshop. I think it's really important if you're an artist to try a different genre as well. I think it translates or brings something new to whatever your main art form is. My advice to become a writer or a playwright is to write. Just sit down and write. I've heard lots of wonderful things people have said, like Diana Bourbano says you have to write like your family's dead. Christina Leach, she says if you're writing about family or somebody to give them a quirk or a character they wouldn't want to admit to. So there's tricks. But it's just sitting down and writing. For me, Breath of Fire gave me a home in Santa Ana that I never had. I grew up in Orange County, grew up in Huntington Beach, and it was beautiful, but I never felt like I had a home. And so when I go to Breath of Fire and I go to Santa Ana, I feel like I have a home. It's not just art, but it's a community space that I feel really connected to. And so it offers me things, and I'm lucky that I get to help run the programming and get the people I want to learn from in. But just for me, it's just a home that I didn't have before in Orange County. And it's an opportunity for other people to come. And it doesn't matter if you're Latina or not Latina. It's a really safe space for artists to come and to learn and to heal and really to meet other quirky people that maybe in your general life you think of something and you're like, oh, I can't say that to that person. But with the other writers, you can say whatever you want, and we'll probably relate. The New Works Lab, it's important to offer new work. It's important to help people find their voice or hear voices that maybe you haven't heard before. And the New Works Lab is an opportunity to open that up, to invite people. And it was also part of our grant. So part of our grant, our 2-year grant, was to offer a New Works Festival for free. And so that's what we've put together. The other playwrights, there's other ensemble members. And what I love about what we've done with Breath of Fire is we've taken people who maybe never thought of themselves as a playwright, but had a story to tell. And now, after all this time, they're telling their stories, and they feel confident in telling their stories. The audience should come to the New Works event because you're going to hear voices that you haven't heard before. You're going to hear not just from Santa Ana, but there's also playwrights that have submitted their work. And stories you just haven't heard and maybe in different perspectives. And a lot of them are people of color, and unfortunately, especially women, maybe you don't have the opportunity to hear their work as much.